Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast, Metapod, the podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Jake usually does the intro, but for the viewers out there who are also listening and hear me doing it, Jake is not with us today. He is not feeling well, but we did get a wonderful guest with us here today. Stéphane Ivanoff, is that how you would pronounce the last name? Ivanoff?
It's Ivanoff, but it's
Okay.
fine. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, it's Stéphane Ivanoff. Please introduce yourself for the listeners out there.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Stéphane from France. Uh, I have been playing for about, 15, 16 years now. I have won two international championships among other titles, and I'm also, which is maybe more relevant for today, one of the biggest advocates for the expanded format. So if you have seen someone being annoying online about it, it was me, and I guess that's what I'm doing these days.
Yeah, yeah. As you alluded to, we're going to be talking all about expanded today. Normally, we talk about standard, which is reasonable because that's what most of competitive. I shouldn't say most, almost all of competitive Pokemon is, especially if you don't play in Japan. It's all just standard with a little bit of GLC sprinkled in at tournaments. But as somebody who's played a variety of formats, I played GLC, but I also have played the Eternal format. I don't know if you ever got a chance to play a little bit of that, but
No, haven't played it.
like that was like Justin Basil's like format that he was all about. So just playing with all the old cards, and especially cards I never played with personally. Like I started in 2019, so but for you, 15 or so years, do you go all the way back to the beginning of the expanded format, like black and white
Yeah,
era? Okay.
yeah. I started. It was just a bit before Black and White, which came out in 2011, and I started in 2010. So I played with. I basically saw the start of Black and White. I was already playing when Black and White came out, so I got to play with all these cards that we have nowadays in Expanded.
Yeah. That's exciting. You have like a deep knowledge of like the card pool. You've played in the whole format, broadly speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I think that's true.
So I'll give a brief definition for people out there who don't know what expanded is, because if you started playing in the last 3 or 4 years, I have no idea how somebody would even know about expanded these days. So for those listeners who don't know, expanded is a alternative format that the Pokemon Company themselves created a long time ago. I think 2013, 2014.
Yeah, something like that, I think.
And the purpose of that format was to allow players to use cards from older sets, and it would be a non-rotating format, meaning they chose to start it at black and white and say all sets that come out from whenever they started the format forward would theoretically be, not theoretically, are legal in expanded format. It doesn't go back before black and white though, so you can't play any of the old WotC era cards, nothing like that. But um, it is quite a large card pool now of basically, what would that be, 15 years of cards. So
Yeah.
yeah, you think about like 30th anniversary of Pokemon, literally half of the Pokemon TCG's history now is the expanded format, which is kind of crazy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And also, bit of information for the listeners. There used to be large scale competitive tournaments for expanded. There used to be challenges and cups and locals for expanded. But after COVID, the Pokemon Company has not supported, at least in the West, has not supported the expanded format in any form, locals or regional level or higher. Um, and they even, with the new client, removed expanded from playability on their online client. It used to be you could play it in PTCG online, but in live, the cards don't go back that far. So that's just some background for people who are
Yeah.
wondering exactly what expanded is. But I guess for you, like, we gave people the understanding that like it's a huge card pool, but it's not one that the Pokemon currently supports competitively. How does that, like, on a broad sense, do you feel like it's a big missed opportunity for Pokemon not supporting this format.
And I think that generally speaking, in DCGs that have been around for a long time, which is definitely Pokemon's case, I think it's like kind of uh, too bad to not have an eternal format. Eternal means, as you know, non-rotating, because having this kind of older format allows people to play with older cards and experience a different side of the game, and also the fact that the cards that are in the format stay in it unless they're banned, which there are a couple, but that's really the exception. It means that people can hold on to their old cards and still use them. Sometimes I have like entire boxes of cards at home, and these are cards which, even though obviously most of them are just random commands and don't matter too much, it's good to know that if I need some old card, then for expanded, I can use it. And it means that the cards that I have, they keep some use. That's also, I think, why some people like the GLC format, because again, you can use your older cards. So if you've been playing for a while, you can still, you're like, oh, I do like this card. I did like this deck, which I played 2, 4, 8 years ago. I can still play it, maybe try something new, maybe use this Pokemon with something else which came out in the meantime. But yeah, there's a real sense of making use of all the cards that you have gone throughout the years. So yeah, I think obviously like I'm not advocating for replacing standard or anything. I think standard is good and important and everything, and should be the main format, absolutely. I just think it's a bit. I just like having the option to play another format, and I think it was nice when Expanded was an official format when it was played, as you said, in locals, but also like in some regionals, at least in North America. And in Japan, it's still played. There's still like one major event each season, which is played in Expanded, and I think that there's a lot of people, not everyone of course, but a lot of older players, older in the sense of that they've been playing for longer, which I think enjoy having this big competitive event once a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually, I want to know your thoughts on like Japan still supports the expanded format. Uh, if you have a take on it, like, why do you think Japan is still committed to this format that the West, that the Pokemon Company International has sort of moved away from recently?
I don't know. I think that generally speaking, Japan has a bigger player base, obviously, and so they like I think one of the reasons why TPCI, obviously we don't know, right? Because they have not made an announcement about that, and they probably never will because we know how TPCI operates. But one of the likely reasons why TPCI haven't expanded, at least in major events, is because they didn't get as many people, like they would usually have like half as many players as in standard regionals, which, at the time it was maybe like 400 players for expanded and 800, 900 for standard. But that was before COVID, and nowadays we have regionals which are huge with more than 2,000 players, both in America and in Europe. Other regions, Latin America is not yet there, I think, but they're getting close. So, like the size of the player base is not really an issue, and I think that if we, if you're like, well, no matter how many which format we play, we do things, no matter how we do regionals, is gonna fill out anyway. Then you can experiment and have more, do things a bit differently, which is, I think, what Japan can afford to do. Obviously, they don't. Their expanded regional happens at the same time as a standard regional. It's like one event, and there's like masters, juniors, seniors, and also the expanded, which is all categories together, even though it's obviously mostly master players. And it's smaller. They only have like 800 players for expanded.
It's a lot,
And
though.
yeah, it's a lot,
Yeah.
but they had like 5,000, right, for standard, but that's just
Yeah.
the caps, and it fills out. In Japan, you have a lottery system to register for these big events, and so it always fills out both standard and expanded. And I don't know how many players would want to play expanded if they could, or standard. Actually, I don't know how many players they would have, but yeah, they don't have to worry about, oh, is this gonna, are we at the limit or anything? So yeah, they can keep having, a bit different ways to do the thing. They didn't have the reason that moved TPCI to move away from expanded.
Yeah, that's. I think. Did you get the chance to watch? Andrew Mahone just posted a video about expanded like
I
yesterday.
haven't watched it yet.
So one of the things that he mentioned, which I actually agree with, is to your point. In Japan, it's a it's a big country, but it's a smaller market than the rest of not Asia, um, comparatively. And I think
Hmm.
the Pokemon Company International has made a clear strategic decision to say we want more people to play, and the way that we think we can do that is by simplifying the competitive landscape and focusing just on standard. It is an easier entry point. They print products like League Battle Decks and Trainer Toolkits, which are, laser focused on reducing the cost of entry for standard. So I do think I could understand that as maybe part of their rationale is like, hey, we're going to put all of our
Hmm.
resources into that, which but that's not to say it wouldn't be that difficult to run maybe an expanded cup at a regional. Like they do
Yeah,
these opens and these cups at alongside regionals. If you didn't make day two, I know that that's what you do is if you don't make day two at a regional, I see every single one of your regionals like, if I'm not making day two, I'm going to play expanded tomorrow.
exactly.
Um, and it is the kind of thing where like you could do that, and I think you would definitely fill out a 64 person or 128 person cup.
Yeah, probably. The thing is that if it's only, like one cup at originals where people come from for standard, uh, I don't know how many people would have an expanded deck ready uh, to play. Obviously, I would, and I know other people who do have expanded decks with them all the time. Um, but yeah, it's a bit difficult because yeah, if you really want people to get interested in the format to actually, test it and so on, you gonna have to have more regular events or higher stakes events than just one cup. All that's being said, like there's still, expanded side events at pretty much every regionals in Europe. Actually, not all of them, but most of them. And there's usually, always some people who are just happy to be there and play the format.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously, like we can discuss, there are also other barriers to entry, which are mostly like it's hard to get all the cards,
Yeah.
and I think that's the main issue in getting people interested in the format is that either you make them play with proxies, which is not going to happen in an official tournaments, obviously, or you have to make cards easier to get in some way, whether that's reprints or special products or whatever, because yeah, like both have to happen at the same time. If you just do, oh, we if if you don't do expanded tournaments, then people are not going to play expanded. And if you do expanded tournaments but without printing the cards or making them more accessible some way, um, people are not, many people are not going to bother trying out the format because they'll be like, yeah, it's too expensive. I'm not gonna get try to get old cards just for one tournament.
Yeah.
And so the player base would only be like those older players who already have the cards, and obviously a few people who know these people who can borrow the cards or who are collectors or who just have the money and want to try, but it's not gonna appeal to everyone. And I don't think expanded should appeal to everyone, right? I think it's fine as just something that a minority of people enjoy, but they enjoy it very much, which is, I think, what is going on in Japan. Not every player wants to play expanded or does play expanded, but some people do, and they play it a lot, and they play a lot of it. And even if it's only for one major per year and some local events, and I think it would not be impossible to do something like this
Yeah.
in the West as well. I think that it's something that TPCI could definitely achieve if they wanted to.
Yeah. Another point that Andrew brought up in his video was about like accessibility of cards, especially some of the
Mm.
old A specs, which the older A specs have warped over the years and are
Yeah.
many times not playable because of how bent they are,
Yeah.
etc. So um, one thing, because I've thought about this personally, I'm like, man, what if they did like an expanded trainer's toolkit, or what if they
Mm,
did an expanded league battle deck? But one of the challenges there is that Pokemon might print that, but how many people would actually buy that?
yeah.
But
I don't know.
I think expanded participation packs like the prize pack series,
Mm,
I think that would actually be a huge success because
yeah.
you don't have to worry about how many you're going to sell. You give them to people who are already playing your game on standard, and if print enough of the packs to give away at leagues, all of a sudden everybody has access to Dedenne and Tapu Lele and Secret Box. Well, Secret Box
Yeah.
hasn't been reprinted yet, which is its own problem, but Computer
Yeah.
Search, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And also, like, even something they could do, because you might have, if it's only expanded cards, like some people would be like, yeah, we don't care about this, but you could also have just, you know, um, in the price packs, you could just have like one more card, which would be just an expanded staple. So you would open, you would have your, I don't know, Dracloak and
yeah. And
and
then you get
Poffin
a
and whatever
Guzma,
is in there, and also yeah, exactly a Guzma. Trainer's Mail, like Battle
yeah,
Compressor, a Double Dragon Energy, whatever, and sometimes maybe, as you said, Tapu Lele, Dedenne,
yeah,
stuff like this. I think it would put a lot of, you know, more cards in circulation, and it would be very helpful for people. So honestly, but I don't really even see a drawback because they could just like add one card per
yeah,
booster pack. It wouldn't change a lot
yeah.
of things.
I mean, especially because like I look at the booster packs, there's always one card in there that I'm like, I really don't need this card.
Yeah,
Just swap it out, even. It's fine.
yeah, we can stop it out, but
Yeah,
we can also like, again, as I
add
said, I
one.
don't think I think printing a bit more cards. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like they could probably afford it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's less of a heavy lift for them because you're not printing a whole new product that you then have to like
Mm,
sell at your game
yeah,
stores or sell wherever. So, um, well, I guess that talks about like a lot of the reprint stuff. I do want to actually briefly talk about over the last year, Pokemon has had like this huge boom, and it's finally slowly coming down, but especially the tag team era cards. Um, have you noticed for expanded like certain decks? I'm thinking like I recently sold a lot of my old tag team cards because I'm like, well, the market's crazy. Like Gengar Mimikyu, the
mm,
regular tag team being like $100. I'm like, that's
yeah.
insane. But do you think that is theoretically going to be a problem in the future if these tag team base arts remain like Gengar and Mimikyu especially like remain like really expensive?
Yeah, it could be. It's hard to tell because, well, I'm not a specialist at all about the Pokemon card
Yeah,
market or whatever, so I have no idea if these tag teams are going to stay at this price, if they're going to go up, if they're just going to crash down and go back to $20 or whatever in a couple of years. So it's very hard. I have no prediction to make on this front. I think that yeah, it could be a bit annoying uh, for the format. That being said, um, like most decks in Expanded, I think, are built around like recent Pokemon. There's a variety of things, but you can definitely build very good decks based just on Pokemon that are in Standard or were recently. Things like Ceruledge EX, for example, or for cards that were recently started but are not anymore. Regidrago, Lugia, Mew VMAX, stuff like this. These are cards which are not that expensive yet, I think.
yeah,
And they are some of the best decks in the format. So obviously you would also need older cards, but these older cards tend to be mostly, trainer cards, which, yeah, some of them are gonna be a couple bucks, I guess, but it's also cards that are gonna be useful all the time. Like you get 2 or 3 Guzma and you can play in any expanded decks basically. So it's like not unreasonable. So yeah, even though there are some decks we do need all the cards, another card which is a big problem is Tropical Beach,
mhm.
which is not bad played,
Not
and you can
anymore.
definitely, yeah. Well, you don't like there are a couple decks which play it, and I think these decks are underplayed because of the viability, because of the lack of
Is
accessibility.
it $300 a
And
tropical beach now or something
yeah, and I
crazy?
think
Oy,
it's much more expensive in Japan, I think. So it's like thousands or whatever. So obviously, like people don't experiment with that card as much, but also like these are mostly only for a couple, control, soul decks, stuff like this. And you definitely don't need that. It's not like, oh, I don't have that, so I have to play worse decks. It's like, oh, there's still like the vast majority of decks and of tier one decks don't need that. Just like they don't need Yagami Mimikyu or whatever. Like some decks do, but if you look at I don't know, the top 10 decks, I don't have an exact tier list or anything in mind, but
yeah,
like probably at least 8 don't need any super expensive card, I think.
that's great. That's a good point too. When I was looking at some of the lists, which we can get into the lists here soon, but when I was looking at some of the lists, you're right. Like your attacking Pokemon tend to
Mm,
be some of the most recent ones, like within the
yeah,
last maybe 4 or 5 years.
mm,
And then
absolutely.
everything that's old are like support Pokemon and like trainers and special energy. And to your point, those usually tend to be the cheaper cards, anyways.
Yeah.
So I that is interesting that like,
And
oh
also, those which would be the easiest to reprint, whether that's in price pack, booster packs, or whatever.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
especially too because a lot of the trainer cards, they're the kinds of cards that I could see them, some of them being reprinted one day. Like it wouldn't be the
Mm,
craziest thing in the world if they reprint and trainers mail was standard legal again. It would
yeah,
be strong, but it would not be
it would be
like
strong.
I
Yeah,
don't think they're
absolutely.
ever going to do that. Probably, I want them to, but with like Battle Compressor or Versus Seeker, probably not. But
Yeah, probably not Trainers Mail and Compressor and VS Seeker all the same time, the same format.
that's
That is
crazy.
that is just a XY era thing. But yeah, like as you said, it wouldn't be out of like it wouldn't be crazy for them to reprint Trainers Mail at some point.
Yeah,
I agree.
and so I think that's a nice thing too. If people do want to get into expanded, a lot of these cards that you might need to buy could be useful in a standard deck in like 2 years, maybe. Who knows? Like the idea
Yeah.
that like level ball was not
Mm,
legal and then it was legal and now it's not
yeah.
legal anymore. Like quick ball is currently not legal, but odds are in standard, but like odds are it's gonna
Yeah.
come back at some point.
Yeah, it's probably.
Yeah. So I guess we can sort of jump into some lists right
hmm
now. I guess going into it, are there any lists that you want to highlight as like right now, if you're talking about like a top tier list, this is the kind of list that you should be
Oh, I think if
looking to
we
beat?
talk about expanded, we have to talk about Regidrago first.
Okay, let me pull that
Both
up.
because it's like the best deck in the format, and also because I think it has lots of things which are uh, instructive for people who are new to the format who want to learn, okay, what's going on around here. I think if you look at a typical Regidrago list, it has a lot of things that are typical of the format. Um,
Yeah, so like
so
give me a rundown
yeah,
here. For those of you who don't know, Regidrago V-Star copies attacks of dragon Pokemon. No other stipulations. They can be new, old,
in the
EX,
discount now, yeah,
non-EX, whatever. Um,
exactly.
but yeah, what is the breakdown of why this list is the one to beat?
Yeah, so basically, Rodrigo is like, very good. So there are, I think, three reasons why it makes sense that you shouldn't be surprised that this deck is so great in Expanded. The first one is that it's a toolbox deck, right? It copies attacks from any dragon Pokemon, and of course, if the card pool is like 5 times bigger than in standard, then there's gonna be 5 times more options. So obviously, you're not gonna play any old random dragon, but there are lots of good dragon Pokemon throughout the years. Most of them are recent, things like Dragapult, Kyurem, uh, and also Salamence EX tends to be played uh, for big damage. It wasn't in the format at the same time as Regidrago in standard, but it came out later, but it's just a way to deal 300 damage, uh, and you can use it for only free energy for your Draco. Uh, if you're watching this in a couple months, then you will have the Mega Dragonite instead, which is the same, but it deals 320 damage instead of 300. I think 330 maybe. I think it's
It's
330.
330. Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy.
yeah, all right. Yeah, so it's gonna one-shot anything in the format, which is nice, but not it's not even the main selling point. The other reason why Vijago is so good is because it uses the best energy card arguably in the game with double dragon energy, means that instead of having to use, energy switch and Teal Mask Ogre Pawn like we did in Standard, which requires space on the bench, which requires abilities which are not always available because there are stadium cards and stuff which will shut them down. You just need a double dragon energy and typically a basic energy. So you can use like small energy acceleration like Crispin or Raihan to get that in one turn if you need to. And so that makes it very easy to attack with Draco. And you have a lot of very good attacks to use with it. And obviously, like discarding cards in Expanded is very easy as well because you have a lot of good discard pile synergies. You have Battle Compressor, which sends cards directly from your deck to the discard. You have lots of very good item cards like Quick Ball and Mysterious Treasure, which are gonna grab what you need from your deck and discard stuff at the same time. You have VS Seeker, which grabs supporters from the discard, so if you discard supporters, you can reuse them again. You have Redragos, V-Star Power, Legacy Star, which also helps you discard things you need and grab back also things you need, which has interesting synergies with Battle Compressor and with VS Seeker. So the deck is very consistent, very good, can do a lot of things, and it has Dialga GX, which is like the one card that probably breaks the deck. Dialga GX has a GX attack, so just like V-Star Power, it's something you can only do once per game, but you can do one GX attack and one V-Star Power. And Dialga GX is just 150 damage. You take another turn after this one.
Oh, okay.
So in theory, it's supposed to cost 5 energy, but with Draco, you obviously only do it for 3 energy. And this is just amazingly good because you can do so much things. You can go, okay, I'm gonna put a muscle band, and then I'm gonna Guzmad a support Pokemon like the GX or Tapu Lele GX on the opponent's bench. So I'm just gonna take 2 prizes and then take 2 more in my extra turn and just climb back the the prize race like this. Even if you're behind, you can go especially in the mirror match. You can go Timeless GX, so you 150, take an extra turn, and then you follow it up with an attack, a disruptive attack, something like Noivern GX, which does 140 and prevents the opponent from playing special energy on their next turn. So, this can prevent an opponent from powering up their own Regidrago after you've done that. So you can try to prevent them from attacking. You can do stuff with Timeless into QRM. So, oh no, the opponent plays Manaphy, so you cannot destroy their bench with QRM. Well, you can go Guzman, the Manaphy, Timeless GX, the Manaphy, and then Trifrost on the next turn.
Oh, man.
There's lots of things you can do, and Dialga GX is incredibly good. Some people think that it makes the deck too strong, but that's honestly not something. That's a sentiment that I really haven't seen from Japanese players. I've seen people say, "Oh, this is too good. Something should be banned or whatever." But yeah, it's definitely Draco is extremely good, and is really at the center of the format in that decks have to be prepared for it. But at the same time, there are techs for Draco. There are things you can play. You have ways to send cards from your opponent's discard pile to the lost zone,
Yes.
like the Lost Thunder Rig. You can play something like Karen to shuffle the Pokemon from your discard back into their deck, and if you item lock them at the same time, it's very hard for them to discard them again. So there are a lot of ways to beat Draco players who don't know what they're doing, or even who know what they're doing, but like you can really punish their mistakes, and so the format is much more complicated than just play Redrago and beat everything, because lots of decks are gonna have their own ways to beat Redrago, and Redrago can take for any of them, but not for all of them at the same time. So it's
I
it's
wanted to point out
pretty.
two cards I see here that almost never get played in standard. That I'm like, I'm so happy they're here. Which is like, I see a one of Carmine and the A
Yeah,
spec of Megaton Blower,
yeah,
which like crazy. Like the
crazy,
Carmine, I
right?
understand. You're kind of trying to be a turbo deck. You want your Pokemon in the discard, but the Megaton Blower, give me some insight into like of all the A spec cards, like why this is the one we're going with.
So to start with, is like not all rigid Rego lists play Bigot and Blower, right? Like
Okay.
you have other options. Many play Secret Box. You could play Prime Catcher as well. Like I know you mentioned older aspects, but to be honest, like there are very few old aspects that are still played.
Yeah.
Computer Search, basically almost every deck that used to play Computer Search just plays Secret Box instead. I guess sometimes you would see Dosing Machine, I guess, but or Live View, but that's pretty rare. But yeah, Megaton Blower, why is it played? Honestly, mostly for the mirror match, because you can remove the double dragon energy from your opponent. You can remove something like a Path to the Peak if they played it before you've used your Vistar power.
Mm,
Um, and it's also useful against lots of random stuff. You generally want Field Blower in a deck in Expanded to get rid of opponents' tools and stadiums, because there are so many disruptive tools and stadium cards, stuff like Silent Lab, Path to the Peak, Parallel City, and so on. Energy as well, like sometimes you would want to get rid of Double Dragon Energy on the opponent, but lots of decks play that, or Double Colorless, or other stuff. Um, and Megaton Blower is just like a very good catch-all answer, basically. It's just, yeah, like, yeah, it does a lot of things, and it's especially good in the mirror match, which is why many decks, especially around last year's Expanded Champions League in Japan, back in May, lots of decks used to play Megaton Blower
yeah.
for Rodrigo, and Rodrigo itself used to play it a lot, but it's not necessarily the best one, and certainly not the only option, but it is a card that has much more potential in Expanded than in Standard, just because there are many more powerful tools and stadiums and special energy that we
Yeah.
don't have in Standard. And I think just to touch a little bit on that, it actually happens quite often that we see cards that are barely played in Standard that's very successful in Expanded. Trijago was the best or one of the best decks in the format even before it ever saw play in Standard. We have had cards like, I don't know, Volcan Navy or Togekizu Max or whatever, which were not really relevant in Standard, which there were some of the best decks in Expanded at the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just I think that's one of the most fun things is that like for people who play standard, you might have cards that you consider bulk that all of a sudden
Mm,
like, oh my gosh, I can use this in an expanded deck and it's actually and it does make sense, right? Like you said, even like cards like Chaotic Swell,
yeah.
super annoying stadium that if you don't have a field blower at hand, you don't want to waste your own stadium to bump it.
Mm,
And something like a megaton blower is just doing so much work for you,
yeah.
which is one card in your deck. So,
Yeah.
um, what is another deck that you would say we can move to your list that you have a link of, which we'll post the link in the description for those interested. But
Yeah. I guess if you want to showcase something a bit different, you can showcase a Vileplume deck.
okay,
Uh, Maybe like the Vileplume Slacking deck.
pull it up here. Vile Plume
Do you want me to?
Slacking, yeah,
Yeah. Do you want
I
me to
have it.
find the link?
Oh no, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Yeah, I have
Sounds
your
good.
link and I've pulled it all up. So
Yeah, wait, no, that's not the one. Uh, yeah, Welcome Slacking. So yeah, that's a very different type of deck.
yeah,
It's like because something to know that Expanded has a lot of variety in the decks because the card pool is so big that you can you can have the best control decks using the best control tools in 15 years or the best aggro tools for an aggro deck and stuff like this. And Valplume is basically the best lock deck, I guess. It's control-ish, but it's not. It doesn't win on by decking out. It wins by on prizes, but it wins by really slowing down the opponent and then taking prizes once you control the board. And the deck works in a very interesting way because there's a very cute combo which you can do on turn one, which you have the old Bunnelby from Primal Clash, which has Omega Barrage, which means it can attack twice. And that is not restricted, like Deep Lane or whatever. It's not restricted to its own attacks. So if you put TM Evolution on turn one, you can use Evolution twice. And so if you do Evolution on Oddish and PG, then you can evolve them into Gloom and Pidgeotto, and then you use Evolution on Gloom and Pidgeotto, and you get Vileplume and Pidgeot-EX set up on turn one. For those who don't know, Vileplume says players cannot play any item cards from their hand. So you go second. On turn one, you have the opponent a card that makes it that the opponent cannot play item cards. You cannot either, but you only play 8 item cards or 9 just for the setup, stuff like Puffin and Tackle. And after that, it's going to disrupt the opponent much more than it will disrupt you. And when you have Pidgeot-EX to search for a supporter card or any card really, every turn, which will let you grab what you need and knock out your opponent's threats. And it will be much harder for them to recover from that, especially since in Expanded, most decks are very reliant on item cards because there are so many good item cards, and you can, play any amount of them in one turn. So most decks are not going to play that many supporters, but they're going to play a lot of item cards. And the way the deck works, you may be like, oh, but are you going to get Bunnelby and Team Evolution on turn one? And there's this supporter called Guzma and Hala, which I think that DLC players are probably familiar with because I think it's also very much played there. Which says that you can grab a Stadium card, a Special Energy, and a tool. So you can grab Artisan to get Bunnelby, and then Jet Energy to bring it active, and Team Evolution, or you can grab Capture Energy to search for something you need. And you have Fan Rotom as well, so you can get Bunnelby and PG at the same time. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do.
That's that TM Evo combo is crazy.
Yeah, like the original this deck, like now the list that we're talking about has Slacking EX as an attacker, which is just a very efficient Pokemon with double colorless. You're just gonna one-shot stuff, 280 damage every turn. You have to discard an energy, but that's fine. Because if you need to, you can always shuffle cards back with Bunnelby in the deck because it also has its own attack, which are both very good. But the list that won the Japanese League Expanded in 2 years ago in 2024 was a pure control list. So it didn't have Slacking or Dragapult or any other attacker that we can fit in this. And instead, it would just take the opponent out because there were many more disrupting supporters, things like Team Flagrant that discard energy from the opponent. And the absolutely incredible thing in this deck is that Bunnelby was, the setup engine because you would use it on turn one, and then it would also be the engine of your deck because you would recover cards every turn. You would be like, oh, I want to play Team Flagrant every turn. Well, I grab Team Flagrant with Pidgeot, I play it, and then I shuffle it back in the deck with Bunnelby at the end of the turn, and I have access to it on the next turn. And the Bunnelby's last attack just discards a card from the opponent's top deck, so Bunnelby will also be like just the win condition by being like, okay, I have control of the board, you don't have energy on board, well, now I'm just gonna mill you with it. So this small card would just do everything in this deck, which is kind of just ridiculously, like, I think it's just very elegant of a deck. Nowadays, like this kind of deck is a bit pure control list is a bit worse because it doesn't deal effectively with everything, so it's good to have ways to just attack with Slacking or something else to just take O's, because sometimes the best way to remove energy from the field is just to knock out the Pokemon that has the energy. But yeah, I think it's a very strong archetype, and we see it regularly reinvented with new or attackers or new cards. But yeah, if you are someone who like reactive decks, you a bit more if you don't like just aggro, but you want to have more of a if you like lock decks and stuff like this, item lock and stuff, then Vileplume is probably gonna be more your speed, and it's also like a top tier deck, probably
Yeah.
top three in the format.
I think Vileplume is one of those cards that people who are not familiar with expanded and haven't played for a very long time, like if you're annoyed about Badoo existing, like Vileplume is like the extreme version of that because it's just a static ability and it doesn't need to be in the active. It doesn't need to be the attack. Um,
Yeah.
and then another card. Let me see if it's in one of these decks. Um, what's a deck that I should pull up that also has the Garbodor in it with Garbotoxin?
I think you should show literally the latest one I did, Mega
Okay.
Absol of Garbodor. I think that's probably one of the best Garbodor decks right now.
Okay. I have it pulled up here. Let me make it a little smaller. Okay. So I have the deck pulled up, and for those of you who don't know, I think Vileplume is one of those cards, like a boogeyman card, that whenever people talk about expanded, it's like, oh, there's Vileplume in the format. Garbodor with Garbotoxin is another one of those boogeyman cards that if you never played with it, it's like you see it for the first time and you're like, how does this exist? Like, I can't imagine this. But give us a rundown. This is a Mega Absol deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, give us a rundown of how this deck operates.
Well, Garbodor is what it does is if he has a tool attached, then Pokemon in play, both yours and the opponent, have no abilities. And so that shuts down a lot of draw abilities in the format. We haven't talked about it very much, but in Expanded, there's a lot of most decks are gonna play the same couple of Pokemon, the Energy X, Crobat V, Tapu Lele GX, which like the first two draw cards and the last one searches your deck for a supporter card. So these are consistency cards, which means that you can turn a Quick Ball or an Ultra Ball into more cards in your hand by just grabbing the Crobat or the Dene or the Tapu Lele from your deck. So these cards are in a lot of decks because they're just very good, to be honest. And Garbodor is gonna shut them down, and it's also gonna shut down many of our abilities. It's gonna shut down Vileplume's ability, for example. Gonna shut down Pidgeot, Hydreigo, like a lot of things. So Garbodor is very disruptive, and which is also one reason why many decks. Well, it's not seen as much these days, so that's not as true. But for a long time, basically every deck had Field Blower in it because you wanted a way to remove tools so that you could remove the tool from Garbodor and get access to your abilities back. And yeah, what Garbodor does is it's gonna prevent the opponent from just accomplishing their strategy, their plan, forcing them to adapt. And so we've seen Garbodor played with many different Pokemon throughout the years and expanded, inserted as well, actually. And the latest innovation in Expanded is with Mega Absol, which I think most people are familiar with. Because Mega Absol is a very disruptive card. It has the Claw of Darkness attack. You're going to discard cards from your opponent's hands. And with Dark Patch in the format, you can power up Absol very quickly. Like, it's reasonable to use its attack on turn 1 if you want. You can also use it on turn 2 once you have Garbodor. You can do something like, okay, I play Garbodor, I Marnie, so you have 4 cards in hand, then I'm gonna use Glow of Darkness, maybe knock out your Pokemon, look at your hand, discard the most important card, and because of Garbodor, some cards are not important, like, oh, you have a Quick Ball, well, don't really care because you're not gonna be able to draw cards with that, so you can just remove the actually important resources and try to just lock your opponent out of the game, and as often in Expanded, there's lack of this spectrum where some decks are more aggressive, some decks are more disruptive, and often the best decks are going to be somewhere between the two. Absol deals damage, so it's going to take knockouts, it's going to aim to win the game fairly fast, but at the same time, it's not the most dangerous cards. It doesn't deal the most damage. It gives you free prizes, so it compensates this lack of effectiveness by just having more disruptive cards instead to prevent the opponent from just knocking out your Absol and winning the games into attacks. And that's gonna be the same thing with a lot of powerful decks. Redrago, yeah, it's gonna deal a lot of damage, but it's not like often it's not just one shot, one shot, one shot. Often you're gonna have to be like, oh, I need to buy some time, so I'm gonna energy lock you or item lock you or something like this. Budgie is also very played in a lot of decks, including Regidrago and including Absol, because it's important sometimes to just buy a turn and just using a small Pokemon for that. And Vileplume is on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's more controlly, it's more disruptive, but it also generally needs to attack to take prizes because it cannot really function just by disrupting. And I think it's kind of interesting. I think to understand it expanded for me, you really have to think of this spectrum and be like, okay, there are some very, very aggressive decks which aim to go for a super powerful combo, but that are very easily disrupted. You just put a Wurfet active or something and they cannot play. And you have these very, very pure stall decks, which can sometimes just prevent you from playing, but are also sometimes just weak to aggression, like a Dialga Current play from Drago, or so just discarding their cards. Marnie is very good against this kind of decks as well. So often the best decks are somewhere in the middle, and that's been true, I think, a lot for X Method. So some people have this wrong idea of X Method as, oh yeah, it's just all about turn one, all about these degenerate decks which don't play the opponent play, when in truth most decks have an element of disruption and an element of aggressivity, and most interesting games from when there's this back and forth, where you have some decks being like, okay, I'm gonna try to win fast. Oh, the opponent managed to stabilize. No, I don't really have a path, so how can I come back myself? I guess we're getting a bit off topic, but yeah, I think that's something that I wanted to talk about because I think many people, think that X Method is a degenerate format, and yeah, sometimes decks end up in a donk or in someone not being able to play because they got locked out of the game on turn one. But very often there are interesting games where both players have a lot of options and they have to choose the best one to deal with whatever the opponent wants to do. And I think I've had some very, very interesting games with many different decks in the format. So
yeah,
I really think that the deck,
I think that's
but the format has these elements.
I think that's a perfect no. I think it's a perfect transition to the state of the format. Any thoughts that you have on the ban list, etc. So like you said, most people who don't play expanded, I will include myself in this. You sort of look at the card pool, even if I don't know the full depth of it, and I think to myself, well, gosh, there's Arceus Dialga Palkia tag team. That was degenerate when it was standard legal, and now you have double dragon energy. You also have true donk decks, which their whole goal is turn one, somehow attack going first, even on the first turn, and try to knock out.
Yeah, these decks, when a deck can reliably win on turn one, something gets banned.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
There's actually the ban list is really aimed to prevent these kind of decks which don't let the other player play.
Yeah.
So we had a very powerful Dusclops donk deck, and because there was a Duskull from Cosmic Eclipse, I think, which could evolve on turn one, and so you would just on turn one use a bunch of Dusclops' ability to deal damage onto the opponent, and then finish it off with an attack that works on turn one, and you would use Live View, so that you would basically use 7 or 8 Dusclops' ability in one turn, but you would only give 5 prizes to the opponent, and you could do some insane things, but obviously these decks are not interesting because sometimes you only open one Pokemon and then you're like, oh well, I guess I get donked, even while going second. So when there's something like this that's really prevents player from playing the game, it usually gets banned, at least when it's good enough. But yeah, I think the important thing about what you said, about, for example, ADP and Double Dragon and so on, is that apart from these degenerate donk decks which don't let the opponent play at all, everything has counters because the card pool is so wide that everything can be countered, and usually in multiple different ways. So ADP, for example, yeah, okay, you use the GX, that's extremely good, but at the same time, there's Pokemon Ranger in the format. It's super supporter. You can just play it, and ADP, like the auto creation is not in effect anymore. So
Yeah.
you just have a simple counter, and because every deck almost plays something like Tapu Lele GX, you have ways to search for the Ranger and play it. So yeah, that's why ADP is very rarely seen. It's seen in one deck actually currently. Like there's a ADP Raging Ball deck which has been seen a little bit more in the past 6 months. It's also mostly because Ranger use has decreased, but even then, like people can counter it, and the deck doesn't rely entirely on ADP. Like ADP is a one-off, and you can definitely play without it. It's just one option if your opponent doesn't play Ranger.
Yeah.
Similarly, Vileplume, as you said, obviously very strong card, very annoying to play against it. But if you include things, if you play not one but multiple Guzma to go, you can go and KO it, and it's not that easy for the opponent to play it again. You could have something like Garbodor, which to shut down Vileplume. You could have Vileplume can also try to counter the Garbodor by playing Stealthy Hood, which is a tool that you put on a Pokemon and makes it so you're not affected by opponent's abilities. So if you put Stealthy Hood on Vileplume, then it's immune to Garbodor's ability. So Vileplume's ability works again, but Garbodor decks can also play Flaba, which is a supporter that is gonna
Lost
send
zone.
the Stealthy Hood to the lost zone. So it's not an item card; it's a supporter. You can play it. So yeah, there are counters and counters to counters, and because of this, there's a lot of choice in deck building, especially where you can be like, okay, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. What do I want to counter? What is fine? Do I accept a not a loss or something? Do I try to have a shot against anything? And depending on what you want, or what you like playing, there's a lot of different answers. There's a deck that's gonna fit anyone. Not one deck for everyone, but everyone can find a deck that they like, that fit their play style and what they want to accomplish. I think, like if you want to play a mill deck, you can play a mill deck expanded. It's not gonna be amazing against everything, but there are some top tier decks which are gonna have a lot of trouble against Great Tusk, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, like some decks they're gonna go fast. Like you're playing Dedenne and Crobat and sometimes Squawk and Battle Compressors.
Yeah.
So my guess is that like in certain decks you might go through more than half of your deck by the end of the first turn.
Oh yeah, there's
Sometimes.
some decks which can almost like they don't, because we like decks are obviously calibrated to
Sure.
not take themselves. But for example, Sterile Edge, like I have a list of Sterile Edge which doesn't even play Dedenne or Crobat or these cards. Like so, it's only the only two prizer it plays is Sterile Edge itself. I don't. Oh yeah, I think I maybe sent you the list.
I have the
Yeah.
list. It's not on screen, but I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Okay. And this list can like it's not super consistent. Like it's not as consistent as decks with Dedenne and stuff, but the deck can like this deck aims to beat Drago, but just not giving it any good ways to win the prize trade, and just being like, okay, I'm gonna discard. I think it's 13 energy with various means, and then I'm just gonna one shot you, and I'm gonna be faster, and I'm gonna win the prize race this way. And with Drago, and you don't give the opponent any good way to climb back with Dialga plus something. And if you play this deck, if you have a good hand, if you have Secret Box in your opening hand, for example, or if you grab it early enough, you can basically end your turn one with 7, 8 cards in the deck. But you don't always want to do that because it can be very risky. But sometimes you're like, you're just gonna draw, sort of thin your deck of energy, discard the energy to draw and play something. At some point you play 2 Fairy Flint, you have 6 energy in hand, you go Carmine turn 1, discard stuff, and you use Unknown to draw cards, you Rescue Carrier to grab the Unknowns back, and then discard them again. So you can dig very, very deep into your deck. But the thing is, like, this is okay. People are, at LAIC this year, I was playing a couple on Saturday evening. I was playing the hotel lobby a couple of expanded day games with a friend, and some other players were watching us and were like, "What is going on?" And because I was like turn one, was drawing through all my deck. But the thing is, like, yeah, obviously, like this is strong, but this is turn one. That's basically the setup I need to do. Is like, okay, if you're gonna item lock me, if you're gonna prevent me from
Yeah.
playing, I have one turn to do what I need, and so I need to optimize this turn and keep just the right amount of resources I need for the rest of the game, which is not easy. Like this, it was actually sometimes you can be like, oh, I should have just kept one more card in hand to have enough resources for the rest, and then after that you have to be very careful often with this kind of aggro decks, I have to be very careful. Be like, okay, what supporters do I still have access to? Can I afford to discard this, or should I hold back because if I discard this VS Seeker, I will not have enough resources to win the game.
Yeah.
And so there's this very subtle balance, which you don't see if you just watch one turn of the game. You're like, oh, this guy is drawing through his whole deck,
Yeah.
and discarding 12 energy on turn one, which can happen, not always, but it can happen. If you just look at it this way, then it looks ridiculous. But if you're like, well, okay, that's the setup. I need to have a discard full of energy so that I can start, so I can reliably take out two prizes each turn and be resilient to disruption. But while also, keeping the resources I need, then it's harder to do. And if you start then looking at what's going on, then it can be very not obvious what the best play is, especially if you're playing Ceruledge against something like a Velplume deck, which could also start milling you with penalty if you dig too deep. So you have to find the right balance between I need to discard energy before I lose access to my item cards, but also I need to keep enough cards in the deck so that I don't just lose because of of my opponent milling, foregoing their usual game plan and just going mill with penalty. And so it's not as simple as just, oh, this is an aggro deck, I'm gonna play every card I can. Because you could build a deck that just draws you through your whole deck into one turn. The question is, what is your deck actually doing besides just drawing? And you have to find the right mix of consistency, draw, like this, but also what do I do with all these cards I draw? What is my goal, and how do I ensure that if my opponent plays this, I have an answer for that. It's easy to do something that we're gonna just fill your bench with Dedenne and Crobat and stuff like this and draw for a whole deck, but then you have Dedenne and Crobat on your deck. That can be an issue. If you don't have any cards remaining, and so you just discard all your good cards, then it's not gonna be easy. So you have to find the right balance, and it's there's no unique answer. Like that's what makes the game still interesting.
Yeah, I do think it is interesting because, as you said, I think in standard there's a lot of decks that, for the most part, people think of them and they are very linear, right? Like I'll say like some Raging Bolt decks, maybe from like a year ago, very linear. Like, what do? I play Sada, I play Raging Bolt, get energy on, go. Same thing with like Miraidon Iron's Hands decks. There's but all the decks in Expanded, for the most part, you have to be flexible with your game plan. You got to be like, what am I playing against? Because the best decks are going to have 2 to 3 different potential strategies. And I think it's a good thing for players who pick up Expanded if they're new to it. Like, you're going to learn how to take one deck and find 3 different ways to drive it, which I think helps a lot of people in Standard, because there's a bunch of games in regionals where you see people win based on using a weird attack that nobody considers. But if you're used to like trying to think outside the box like that, you're like, oh, if I just do 10 damage here and leave this single prizer in the active after I Iono, that's all I needed to knock it out. I don't have to attack with my main Pokemon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess last little piece here, if you were going to hope that somebody at the Pokemon Company International was listening, in terms of a ban list, I'm not going to say don't pull anything off of the ban list, because I don't even know all the cards that are on it, but are there any cards currently legal and Expanded? If it's 1, 2, might be none. Are there any cards that you're like, they probably should have a look at that card?
So my controversial opinion, I guess, is that I don't think we need to do anything about Regidrago. I think the deck is, it's definitely very strong, but I think people have a skewed idea of how strong it is because they saw it dominating Aichi last year, the Champions League, and it was very dominant, but it's also just one event. So in special conditions, it's Japan, it's best of one, so people would
Yeah.
play differently in best of three. I think some decks would be better in best of three, whatever. That's another topic. But yeah, I think Vidrago is a very strong deck, but it's also an interesting deck. The mirror matches are fairly intricate, and also I think I'm not sure, but I'm I am reasonably confident that the developers are aware of this and that they're gonna try to fix Rejago by printing something that, in a way or another, counter it. We've seen this a couple times when something is an issue in expanded. Not an issue in that something is broken and needs to be banned, but for example, in 2024, there was Japanese exclusive promo card, Firefighting Pikachu, which was played. And this was because it had the firefighting attack for one colorless energy. It discards a fire energy from the opponent's active Pokemon. And it was the only Pokemon which could do this for a colorless energy. There was a couple cards like a Psyduck that would do this for water, but Pikachu would do this for colorless. And at the time, that was relevant because the Regidrago didn't have Crispin at the time. So it didn't have energy acceleration apart from right hand, which only works if
Pokemon is
your
knocked
opponent took
out.
a knockout.
Yeah.
And so many decks, like Vileplume decks especially, would fit with one Firefighting Pikachu in their decks to help against Regidrago and also a bit Charizard, which was a bit played at the time. And the issue was that this was a very expensive promo, which was, I think, hundreds of euros or dollars or whatever, the equivalent. And so, you had people cracking open like graded cards, the slab just to get the card to play it. And that was an issue because the same issue as Procurable Beach, right? Like you don't want people to have to rely on a very expensive exclusive promo card. And it took a year because the development cycle is fairly long, but about a year later, we got Ducklet in White Flare, which is a 70 HP basic with firefighting for a colorless energy. By the time, it wasn't relevant at all, and I think nobody who wasn't familiar with Expanded looked at this card and was like, oh, that was made on purpose, but I'm fairly certain that they were like in 2024, in April or May, whenever HE was, they were like, oh wait, there's an issue with this. We need to print something to prevent this issue, and so they printed something for the next year, And similarly, because of how dominant Regidrago was at HE in 2025, I think it's likely that the card designers took a look and were like, okay, what can we design a card which won't have an effect on standard, or not a major effect, but which will specifically help people in expanded, attack against Regidrago, which would be fairly which would fit in many different archetypes. And I'm not sure what that is, but I think there's a good chance that we see something, this year in June or whatever, coming out. I might be completely wrong. It's just that it's a pattern that has appeared a couple of times, and I think that it is likely that if they fix Regidrago, they fix it this way. In any case, my worry is that if you ban something like Dialga GX or whatever, Regidrago, it's not as good, but I don't know what the effects will be on the format in general, and I don't know if the format gets better without Drago at the top. I think it might be, but I have no idea if it is really going to be more enjoyable just because there's no clear BDIF anymore. And yeah, I don't know what the repercussions would be, and so I would be against banning a card just because it's very good.
Yeah.
Because Drago might be very good, but it's also a deck that has counters, and we're trying to counter it and playing with it and against it is actually very interesting, and I think it's mostly a good thing for the format. Maybe not for the diversity of the format, but I think that overall it's yeah, it's a good deck, something you can give to a new expanded player, be like, hey, look at this, it's super strong, but they will have fun with it, but they will not master it just by playing 3 games with it.
Yeah.
And even among Regidrago players, there's a lot of variations. Some people play Pheasant DPT EX in the deck. Some people play Path to the Peak or not. There are many, the Ace spec, we've talked about it. There are at least 3 different choices. Not everyone plays Curem, not everyone plays Noivern, not everyone plays. There are multiple options. So I think the deck is fairly good. To answer your question, though, about what I would actually ban, I think if we want to ban something, I would really want to ban everything. There are some cards that help only to create non-gains, basically. Um, Cards that are gonna lock the opponent out of the game on turn one. There's no degenerate combo that wins all the time, like Dong decks, because those get banned. But there are some cards which don't work all the time, but when they do work, the opponent doesn't play the game unless they top deck the right cards. And when they don't work, then your own deck is useless and doesn't do anything. So, for example, there's this item card from Evolving Skies, which is called Boost Shake. And the effect is you search your deck for Pokemon to evolve one of your Pokemon you play, and that ends your turn. And what you can do is do that with Jellicent EX. So, on turn one, you dig for your deck, you evolve your active Freelish, you have Jellicent, your opponent is cannot play item cards or tool cards, so that removes a lot of their options. And if they have a good hand, if they have ways to get out of this, or sometimes just be like,
play Marshadow. Put them down
sorry?
you play the Let Loose Marshadow. Is that legal?
It is banned.
Oh, this one. Okay, that one is banned.
Yeah, Marshadow is banned, but just even without a hand disruption card, just being like, okay, it's your turn one, but you cannot play a lot of your cards. It's gonna be it can be very frustrating. And Jellicent is good enough as an attacker, either by itself or with Card of War, that it's gonna eventually win if the opponent doesn't top deck. So I don't think this is interesting, because if you go second and you lose because your opponent gets Jellicent and you have no time to do anything, then you don't have a good time. And if you win because your opponent didn't get a turn one Jellicent and so their deck does almost nothing, then that's not interesting either. So I think Boost Shake is a card that basically doesn't do anything good for the format. Even when it's not that it's broken, it's not that it's gonna win tournaments or anything. It's just that it allows people to play decks which are unhealthy, in my opinion. Decks that are not going to be, very rarely going to be interesting back and forth, and are usually just going to be, I want to prevent you from playing from turn one, so it's just like, I hope you don't have anything, and so on. And I think that I would much rather ban something like Boost Check, or like the first card that can attack turn one, like Pheromosat GX, stuff like this, because most of the time they're not bad, but sometimes people are like, well, I could do something with this, and when they do something with this, it's just a down deck, and I just think that it's not great. The other contender I think would be maybe Electro GX, which it gives 2 price. It's sacrifice itself, gives 2 price to the opponent, and to attach 5 energy cards from your discard to your Pokemon, non-GX Pokemon. Could be any energy cards, including special energy. And this has basically also only been used to try to do broken combos where you or something. Like, for example, there's the Alolan Raichu deck, where you put a bunch of reversal and counter energy on Alolan Raichu, and its attack is 30 damage to an opponent's bench Pokemon for each lightning energy on it. So you have like 4 reversal, 4 counter, that's 20 lightning energy, so you deal 360 damage. Wait, no, that's more. You deal 600 damage
to each
on the
Pokemon?
opponent's bench. No, but you choose for 20 times, you choose a Pokemon and you do 30 to it, basically. So if there's like free 200 HP Pokemon, you can go 200, 200, 200 and win one turn. And that's also basically the only mode of the deck is to win one turn. You buy a turn with Gengar Mimikyu, and then you do that and so on. It's a deck that is very strong when it's not countered, but it's also very easy to counter because you put Manaphy in play and they lose, and some other stuff. And also, if you have Psyduck now as well, if you go, okay, Psyduck, you cannot use Electro GX, your deck doesn't do anything.
Okay.
So it's a deck that it's not like a broken deck or anything. It's just a deck which is like, well, if you have the right, if you play the right counters, then you win, and otherwise, you probably lose. Obviously, there are some things you can do. You can use Bud Use sometimes, which to buy turn. There are some cards which can disrupt them, but maybe not. Depends on what they have. but yeah, it's Electro GX has only been played in these kind of decks uh, where it's aiming for a big combo, and I think that it's not the best
Play
like
experience.
yeah, it's exactly yeah.
Yeah.
And there are some people I know that there are some rumors about it getting banned. Like some Japanese players were like, well, I hope this this goes away soon. And yeah, my very anecdotal experience, but from what I saw, people would like to see that gone more than they would like to see Drago gone, because Drago is actually like the yeah, it plays like a Pokemon deck, a very good Pokemon deck, but it's still a deck, and you play actual games
Yeah.
with or against it.
To your point, it's strong, but it doesn't create a type of game that was never intended by Pokemon. Where
Mm.
like Boost Shake turn 1 going first into a Jellicent EX is like that is antithetical to the whole concept of Pokemon.
Yeah, it's well, obvious. I mean, I don't know about that argument, because you could argue that Red Drago and Double Dragon
Maybe.
Energy and Dialga GX were never intended to be played together, and which I
Yeah.
mean,
Sure,
sort
they
of,
weren't.
but
They weren't
sort of
printed
too,
together,
even
but
though
like
in Japan they were always like Japan always played expanded, so these cards were the developers knew that these cards could be played together in expanded, but I don't. My point is less about the intent and more about what it does to the game. Like if you have a game where you're like, well, I sure hope I win the coin
The
flip,
coin-
because
yeah.
otherwise I lose without even being able to play a turn or something like this, then it's just not an interesting thing, I think.
I agree.
You
I
know?
think you don't want to rely on a coin flip to be like a determining factor of who wins or not. Like,
Mm.
it's one thing if it's like, oh, if I go second or if I go first, I have a much higher likelihood. Fine, but
Mm.
nobody
Yeah,
likes the alternative. So,
yeah, exactly.
well, thank you so much for joining, for talking about expanded. I definitely want to check out like look into building one of these decks. I don't know which one yet. I even have in my brain like there's probably bad, but I'm like, man, none of the decks that I'm looking at seem like they can do a ton of damage off the bat. So I'm like, are the new megas like the
Mhm.
Venusaurs or the Charizards like they're 380 HP? Is that one day? Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen them, but that's the interesting thing is that there's the card pool is so wide that people can
Yeah.
find ideas and make them work, even months after they get released. So maybe who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe there might be something like the Vitality Forest is definitely a strong card, so there might be something great going on there hidden.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, thank you once again, and good luck. When's your next regional? What's your? Are you going to
Um,
Toronto?
I'm going to Toronto. Yeah,
Oh, nice. Okay,
yeah. I
awesome.
should probably start playtesting at
Testing.
some point.
Yeah. Well, very exciting. Good luck in
Yeah,
Toronto. I'll
thank you.
definitely be watching, and hopefully, I'll see you up on the stage in Top Cut. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
well, thanks.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, absolutely. And otherwise, well, thank you very much for having me in any case on the podcast. I'm always very happy to talk, and especially about Expanded. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it was a
thank you
breath
for
of
giving
fresh
me
air. It's like, oh, they
a
want to talk
platform.
expanded. Let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, that's going to do it for the podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening to the podcast that revolves around the evolving meta, whether that's standard or expanded. And we will catch you next week. Oh, check the link in the description if you want access to all of the lists that Stéphane has been posting over the last year or so. We'll
yeah,
post a list to your link tree down there as well. So
thanks.
check it
And
out.
yeah, and also if you allow me just for 1 second,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
also planning to have an actual website for Expanded up at some point this year, because Linktree is better than nothing, but we need an actual place to have lists which I can update, and and which is not like Discord or anything, so something more public. So hopefully, sometimes this year I need to put aside some time for that. But yeah, hopefully we can make it easier for people who want to get into Expanded to actually do so. All right.
A proper decklist database and meta discussion place. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, take care, everybody, and thank you once again.